Welcome back, CSE 121, Fall 2020, to our test score exercise. This is going to be part 2, and we're going to make 4 test scores, and we're going to keep building on this. So we're going to save this as a new file. It'll just be easier than constantly deleting things and editing things on this file. So I'm going to save it as a new file. So before you do anything, with this test score 1 file, I'm just going to hit save and just make sure I saved the last version of it and it works, and that's what it's doing. It's outputting 3 lines of code here, and 2 of them are inputs and 1 of them is a print statement because we're going to keep reusing them. So I'm going to do a save as here, and I'm going to save it as test score 4. Now you might call it test score 2 because it's our second one, but since we're going to print out 4 things, let's just call it 4. That'll make more sense. So I'm going to save as, and down here just rename it and call it 4, and this version will be test score 4, and then we could start editing it. So we could hit save down here. And again, this is in my CSE 121 directory in Python Anywhere. And now we have test score 4, and we're going to put 4 times here. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this down here. This is actually part of the print. We only have to do this one time, this math here, but we're going to have a couple different inputs here. So we're going to have let's look at it like we're going to have 4 tests. So let's do this. Let's just copy this first, and I'll paste it, and I'll put space in between when I paste it. And one thing we could do right off the bat is in here, I'm going to put a line break so that every time we get a prompt, there'll be a little space in between. We don't have to have it in between to enter the earn points, but every time we have a separate test, we could do this. So the first one doesn't matter, but we'll do it on the second one, and then we'll do it here. Now, what's happening here is this will just keep rewriting itself. We have the same variable. If we did this, it would only use whatever we did the last time, because it's almost like reassignment is what's happening here. So if you had variables and it was pp and ep, whatever you put in would get saved or get saved in memory. And then when you went here, the new ones you put in would overwrite them. And then this would overwrite them. And then this would overwrite them. So we actually have to have different variables here. And again, it's not really efficient, but we're going to work towards efficiency. That's our goal, is to do things in the beginning that seem like, well, okay, I understand how it works, but how can we make this work better? And that's what we're going to work towards with Python. We're going to get more efficient as we work. But for now, we're going to get things to work first. So we'll get them to work simply, and then we'll make them work better. So what we'll do here is we'll just call it 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. And again, remember, we're in test score 4, so don't do it to the test score 1. I mean, if you did, just do a save as, and that's okay. All right, so now we have variables that represent all of this stuff here. Now, the problem is we don't even have to run it yet. I could save what we've done, and already we have a syntax error down here, undefined. What's happening? It's a name error because we have variables EP and PP that are being used in an expression, but they can't find them up here, so they're not assigned anywhere. So these are unassigned or undefined variables down here. That's why it's giving me undefined name. It's saying, hey, these don't represent anything. They have to be assigned. It's kind of a rule. You have to, you have to have a name to, I guess, be in a class or something like that, but they don't have any kind of name, so they're kind of undocumented here. So we have to do something with this. Now, before we do this, in this case, now that we have 4 values, and we're just saying score equals round, what we actually have to do here is we're going to do something like this. We have to do an intermediate step because we're now going to have to add up the possible points and then add up the earn points and get totals. So what we're going to do down here, and again, this isn't really efficient, but this is just another step to kind of move us on our way as we learn Python. We're going to do like totals down here. Since pp's first, I'm going to say pp tot. And I'm not using underscores here, so hopefully that works okay. And I'm going to hit return and say ep tot. That means total. And you could even put stuff like here. This is not a bad thing to do. It's not bad to go in here, even though it's more code, but it makes it more understandable. So you could say pp tot and ep tot is possible points total. So if anybody else read your code, at least they'd know what you were doing here. They had some idea, and it's not bad to get in the habit of doing that. Even for yourself, there's a time you may do some code and you'll go back to it and you'll be like, well, what the hell was I doing here? I don't even remember doing this. And if you have some notes in here, that kind of helps. So now we're kind of spelling out what these are, because you can't always make variables that completely indicate what the name is. You want to be very semantic about your variables, meaning you want them to have meaning to you. You don't want them completely cryptic, but you don't want to have them real hard to type out either. You know, you don't want to be slowed down because you're typing things and then you're making errors typing them out. So that's an issue too. So keeping them short is helpful. And as long as you could kind of look at them and know, oh, earn points, possible points. As long as you know that system and you have it marked up here, that works. Okay, so we're going to do totals here. And what are we going to do for totals? Well, this seems kind of primitive. So what we're going to put here is pp1 plus pp2 plus pp3 plus pp4. And I guess I could just retype ep1. Now, this is where keeping short variables helps us because that was easy to type. Now, what I need here, I'm still getting an error, undefined name. It still doesn't know what EP is because we're using EP total and PP total. So I just have to change these to tote and change this to tote. I just have to save it, I think, and that'll go away. And I think I'm okay. So I'm still printing out score. My final thing that I'm printing out is score. And what I might do is actually just put my score down here with this, because they kind of go together. They're kind of the finished output here. It's giving my final value of score, and then it's printing out score. That's kind of what it's doing here. So let's save this one more time and try it out and see what happens here. We should get a couple inputs. So it says enter possible points. So let's see. The first one I got 50 and 35. Next one I failed. I got 50. I got 25 out of 50. Then I studied real hard. I got a 45 out of 50. And then the last one, I got 100%. Look at that. I got a 50 out of 50. So I really improved. Once I got that 25, I really buckled down. So once I hit enter here, it should go to my print statement because these are all my input statements, all 8 of them. And now when I hit enter, I end up getting a 77.5%, which hopefully they'll round that up. I'll get a 78. I'll get a C+. So by buckling down at the end, I ended up getting a C+ when I was like failing at the beginning. So those are my 4 things. Now let's kind of look at this a little bit. It's not really efficient because if we have to go back and change things, we're going to have to change all these variables. Let's say you had 10 of them. Let's say you had 30 assignments over the semester. I'd have to have PP1, EP2, all the way up to 30. And then if I had to put ones in between, then what do? I call them PP2C or B or things like that. And then you have to keep adding to these. It's not really efficient. There's got to be a better way, and there is a better way, and we'll find ways to do that. But we're kind of doing it kind of the primitive way first. And actually, I have to say, I like doing it a primitive way first. Some of you, who you had programming in high school, you're like, oh, this is going so slow. Why? We should just be using a loop and doing this. I would rather make sure that you knew how to do it this way and then move on. And then you see the importance of loops. You see the importance of counters. You see the importance of having one variable that can update instead of having to change variable names and things like that. When you're entering possible points and earn points, when you're doing it, you're like, wait a minute, I'm losing track. I only have 4 of these and I'm already losing track of how many I have here. So if it said enter possible points test 1, enter possible points test 2 or assignment 2 or whatever, and so on, at least then you could keep track of what's going on. It can say you received a whatever % over 5 tests or something, so you knew how many tests there were. There's a lot of different things we could kind of add to this and make this better. Now this is just kind of our part 2 part, so we're actually going to stop here. And then we're going to move on. We're going to use a counter so we don't have to keep adding to this. Because again, you see the inefficiency of this. If we had another one, we'd have to make it 5. And then we'd have to go down here and add PP5 and add EP5. And that's not very efficient. I mean, this is computer programming. That just seems very primitive. Be better off sitting around with a calculator and a pencil. It'd be a lot faster than writing code to do all this.
Wait, SpongeBob! We're not cavemen! We have technology!
So we're going to add some counters in here so that we don't have to kind of keep changing variables and be managing all those different variable names as we go. So we're going to make it a little more efficient in our next version, and we're going to call that testscores 4C for counter. And I'm not sure what we'll call the one after that, but we'll call it 4C for counter. So that's going to be the one coming next. So we're going to stop here with part 2. I'm going to save it and make sure this works. Make sure that you can put in basically 4 test scores and that it outputs a % down here. That's all you have to do. And we did it by adding this little in-between part where we're kind of totaling them up. But we're going to total them up with a counter in our next video.